Hi and welcome to the Clinch Show on enca.com. We've just witnessed EFC 59 here in Johannesburg, Carnival City, and a fantastic event it was. Just to go over and review some of the action, I'm here with Alastair Bishop from the BigAlPodcast. Al, thanks for coming in, mate.
Only a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Simon.
So what's your main takeaway from EFC 59 from Saturday?
A lot of things, Simon, for me, like, looking back at the card before in Cape Town, it was always going to be a tough act to follow because it was kind of a night where guys came out, we saw knockouts, we saw finishes, we saw everything, and you know, as a fan, you kind of expect to see that all the time now.
Yeah, you're kind of saying something to what Drika said in terms of how South African MMA is starting to raise itself up.
Absolutely.
So you kind of say that EFC 59 was a measure of the increase of professional awareness.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, everybody wants to see a finish, and I mean, especially at Carnival City, I think the crowd, especially there, really wants to see a blood sport in essence, you know, and they really want to see a big KO. But the fighters really want to get the win, you know. They know that the caliber is getting higher and higher, and you need to start notching up the wins, and you need to start protecting your record and things like that. So all of that's coming back to a fight style. Maybe guys are being slightly more tentative where they could have maybe gone for a finish and they maybe didn't. Not saying that it did, but these are the things, this is the mentality that's starting to come through in fighters, and that, I think, speaks to the mass volumes of the growth of the sport in South Africa.
Well, you referred to the co-main event there, Joe Cummins against Sean Delanga, a rear naked choke 3 minutes into the first round. Were you surprised by the speed in which Cummins got that victory?
I was surprised, but I mean, obviously, when we look at Sean Delanga, everyone expects this gritty stand-up fighter, but at the same time, we've seen glances of his ground game, but not enough. And I think that was always going to be a question as how he deals with the ground game and how he deals with fighting off his back. I mean, his build, he's a lanky guy off his back. You would expect him to throw up triangles.
No, his jits is superb.
And I don't think it was a fair display of how good he's on the ground. And I think that's exactly it. Joe Cummins, in his mind, knew that his best chance to get the W against a tough opponent was to take him down. And I think it shows a lot of respect to Sean Delanga as well, that a striker like Joe Cummins didn't want to actually stand there.
Don't you think Joe was sandbagging a bit during fight week? Because there he was saying, I asked for Sean, I wanted a fight where I could show my stand-up, where I've got a guy who finally I can engage with. He complained about the Bruno Makulu fight.
Sure.
He complained about the Temba Grimbo fight in terms of here's a guy who's up clinching me up against the cage all the time. So he kind of gave the impression that he's going to stand and bang, and he's got a fighter in Sean Delanga who would do that and then takes him down and display superb top control.
Sure, but that's the fight game, you know. If Sean Delanga thought that maybe this is just going to be a 3-round stand-up war without the possibility of a ground game, you know, that's his mistake. But I think Joe Cummins had a solid plan, and he knew earlier, the sooner he gets him down, the better for him. I mean, he took a side control, he maintained it for a long time and finished the fight. And I mean, he got the W, and I think that's all that mattered to him at the end of the day.
Yeah, I enjoyed it because it was the first fight that EFC fans have really seen what I think is the real Joe Cummins. I think we announced him. I think it's his 4th fight in the EFC. And Sean Delanga is never in a boring fight, regardless of win or loss. Let's go for the first fight of the main card then.
The one that everyone's talking about.
Is that the most spectacular knockout you've ever seen in the history of the EFC, Alastair Bishop?
I would say it's definitely up there. Hey? It probably is. I mean, it's not at the moment because it's in the context of what was happening. But to me, there's so much more to that knockout. Everyone sees that spinning heel kick, and initially you're like, when does that work? You know what I mean? You do it over and over and over again. And if you look what he was doing, he was actually throwing it as a body kick.
Yeah.
But in the build-up to that, if you actually watch what Alain Lunga was doing, I mean, he caught Barnett with a couple of harsh body kicks, and it's what I said to you before the fight. Yeah. Watch out for the body kick, because Ilunga throws hard, and Ninob is susceptible to that. I don't know why. He gets caught with body kicks. It's quite a strange thing. And he set up 1 or 2 leg kicks, I think it was, before that, and he was panicking, and you know, and he started pressing him back, and the shoot was coming. I think Ilunga knew that he was going to shoot any time. So he was trying to kind of keep the distance, and I mean, then the magic happened, man.
Yeah. You could see Barrett was changing levels for the takedown as he took the kick. And you're right, we've talked about Alain Lunga's liver kicks before. So he knew it was going to come at some point, but he knew he had to take it down to the ground. And I think that was happened.
Vicious.
Amazing knockout. And it's great to see that after such an incredible knockout, You know, Barron's, you know, perfectly cleared, great scan, no issues with regards to.
These are the most insane athletes in the world. Their conditioning and strength and all of that is on another level. You can't even compare it to another sport. That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
And I mean, you put someone ordinary in that same position to eat the same kick, are they going to be okay? I don't think so.
Well, the kick landed on his trachea.
On his trachea.
On his throat. And that transference of torque up to his cranium is what knocked him out. But it hit him in the throat.
You got to take your hat off to these guys' strength and conditioning and the work they put in for these things. You know, it's actually insane.
Yeah, I completely agree. Pierre Botha proved quite a lot of people wrong, didn't he?
He did. I think stylistically we were at risk of writing him off. But again, I also think there's a little bit more to that fight. Without taking anything away from Pierre Botha, he executed a game plan that everybody knew he was going to do. I feel like he could have done a little bit more work, especially when he's in top control. Ruan Potts is really getting a lot out of him. But I think in hindsight, if Azzy Thomas was a little bit realistic, he shouldn't have taken that fight. I think his knee was way worse than he admitted. And he posted a photo afterwards. His knee is done. It's not in a good shape. It was completely swollen. You know, and hats off to him. He showed up and he tried to put on a fight. I think he was out-muscled, he was out-wrestled. But he had no movement. He couldn't backpedal properly. He wasn't going forward properly. You know, he wasn't putting his weight under his punches. It just wasn't there. So yes, Pierre Botha, he proved a lot of people wrong. He put on a massive show. He sadly got the draw for him, you know, with the illegal blow. He lost the point. And he did really well, but I don't think it was a true showing of Azzy Thomas, which was quite sad for him. So there was a lot of bad things for both guys. I mean, Azzy with the knee, and Pierre Botha took an opportunity. Unfortunately, he lost a point and had to take the draw.
I agree with you on pretty much all points, and it'd be very interesting to see, because you're right. That was a very different Azzy Thomas to the Azzy Thomas that fought Boyd Allen, completely different fighter. And it'd be very interesting to see how Pierre Botha does. And I agree with you. Ruan Potts is doing some great stuff with that kid. And if you watch the series and Fight Week, he was really. He's also a guy you want to root for in terms of his upbringing and his background. Philippe Rouche against Francois Groenewald. Now, purists of the sport, guys who love jits like I know you do. I love that fight. I thought it was a fantastic one.
It was a bit annoying for like the purists, you know, because there was all of this magic happening in front of you, and seeing like the dexterity in these guys and flexibility and the way they were countering and transitioning, and like even to levels that I don't even understand, you know. You're like, geez, maybe when I'm a black belt one day you'll understand what these guys are doing. But it was just, more importantly there from both guys was just that never say die attitude. They both got caught. I mean, I think they were both in seriously deep triangles at a point, and they were just finding a way to survive and finding a way to get through it, you know, and to reverse and better the position. And I think Francois Groenewald dislocated his shoulder at some point.
Sure. They both went to hospital in the same ambulance.
Yeah, sure. And like Rouge was extremely impressive. I don't think I would have liked to see a little bit more of his stand-up, just to kind of see what we did.
Oh, he hits pads hard.
Yeah,
Pad fantastic.
He looks like he can throw a punch, absolutely. So it'll be nice to see. I mean, the UFC is trying to build a contender for the Mart. So these guys are in the running, you know. And look, we haven't seen enough of Rouge to say if he's got the ability to take on someone like the Mart, but I think he showed, and he won a lot of fans in the UFC on Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of female fans as well. But look at it. First time Francois Groenewald has ever been submitted in his professional career. That's quite an achievement.
No, it's a massive achievement, man. I mean, he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and anybody knows anything about jiu-jitsu, that's not, a black belt is not something that just gets handed out, you know. It takes years and years and hours of time on the mat. So it's a guy who's dedicated his life to a craft, you know, and to get caught out in that same craft is a hell of a thing, you know, especially someone who's come from France and reasonably like short notice. He's had to fight in the EFC away from home. He had a coach in the corner. Doesn't speak the language. You got to consider all of these factors. You know, there's the altitude, the time, or not much of a time difference, but all of these things to come fight a guy who's got his home support, he's at home, and in essence, maybe in that weight class, he's probably the best jiu-jitsu practitioner, if not one of the best in the organization. The EFC just seem to be finding this great amount of talent, and it's awesome for the fans, you know what I mean? Especially a guy who's submitting black belts in his first outing.
Yeah, it really is EFC worldwide now, which is fantastic. And talking about that, Jose de Rocha from Brazil against Dricus du Plessis. I've got some mixed feelings about the fight. What did you think?
Massively happy for Dricus, but it was like a bulldozer. He ran right through him. And it's what I said to people. I actually spoke to my jiu-jitsu coach who's over here from Brazil, and I was asking him, you know, what was it like to come here and get on the mat straight away and start rolling? And he was like, man, it was the first 5 days was hell. You know, like you can't breathe, the air is a lot thinner, and I know there's theories guys say, you know, like if you come close enough, your brain doesn't register and you don't really feel the effects of altitude and you know, stuff like that. But I don't know so much, man. That dude seemed to be flat, you know. Dricus is a seriously powerful guy. I think that's one of his biggest attributes, in fact, is his strength. I sat and met with his strength and conditioning coach, and these guys do crazy stuff, man. He's just ahead of the game with that. And I spoke to Dricus afterwards, and he said he actually felt de Rocha's rib pop in one of their first exchanges, you know, and that would have been straight from the bulldozing, you know. He got put away, he got put down, but for de Rocha comes here, this Brazilian prospect, and gets smashed, you know, straight up, which is not cool for him as well, because you also want to, you know, he's here from Brazil, let's build this prospect, let's give him the opportunity. I mean, obviously there was a lot of mixed emotions going into the fight to have a guy go straight for the belt. You know? Yeah,
and Dricus said also, you know, he put a lot online. He couldn't see any footage of this guy whatsoever, and he worked so hard for the belt, and he's putting a line as well. So I agree with you. I'm sure Jose de Rocha will come back with a proper fight camp, and we'll see what he's able to do. Al, you're going to really hate me for this question.
Go for it.
So I'm going to have to put you on the spot. August, Dricus du Plessis is going to middleweight to fight Yannick Bahati and possibly be a 2-division title holder. Who wins that fight?
You've put me on the spot now. I think I'm going to lean towards Dricus for a lot of reasons. I think he'll be quicker. He'll be in and out quicker. The difference is if Dricus is on his back. I think that'll be the interesting part, to see how he deals with Yannick from his back. But I don't think he lets it get there. If I'm Dricus, I'm going to spend a round or two just really wearing him down. You know, nobody's done that yet to Yannick Bahati. They haven't taken him into deep water in a 5-round fight, drag him into the 4th round.
Mikhail Opperman certainly didn't, did he? He finished it in 30 seconds, which is also an interesting point.
No, sure.
Dricus' teammate.
Sure, but I think I'm not sure if Dricus possesses that raw KO power like Opperman does, you know. He's definitely got the skill. Whether he has that raw one-punch, lights-out power, I can't say. I don't see it, but I think it would be a good thing to drag him into the 5th round possibly, and I think nobody's going to complain to see them go 5 rounds.
I think Dricus is probably going to have a word with you about that.
Yeah.
K1 world champ. Is Dricus du Plessis South Africa's greatest international prospect in mixed martial arts?
Someone asked me about it the other day. They were kind of saying, why do you think there's not much international talk about Dricus at the moment? And Dricus is very clever. He knows what he's doing. His only loss is to Gareth McClellan in the EFC. And he steamed through some of, you know, the best prospects we have, and you have to pinch yourself to remind yourself that he's still only 23 years old. You know, it's insane. He's 100% the biggest prospect we have at the moment, and he's going about his career in the right way. He's not in a rush. He knows I think the 2-division champion is massive in his mind now. He knows securing that 2nd belt is going to be massive for his career, which seems to be like the flavor of the moment in MMA. Everybody wants to be a 2 or 3 division champion.
If you wound that fight back, Gareth McClellan against Dricus du Plessis, who wins it today?
Geez, man, that's a fight, honestly, that I think even if we could maybe just hire out a gym and let's let it happen, you know, because there was moments in that fight. And there's actually quite a famous photo where you can see Gareth's, like he's deep in a rear naked choke. Dricus has got him, and I don't know what happens if his arms gasses or I think Gareth reverses him somehow. But there was a moment when he almost pulled that off, you know, and can you imagine the shockwaves it would have caused for both guys? But it was a hell of a fight. I think Dricus was young.
He was young.
He had a couple of breathing problems. He couldn't control his breathing, and he didn't know how to like reset and calm down at that stage in his career. So I think those things cost him, and it was experience at the end of the day that cost him.
Sure.
So, geez, man, it's two very different fighters now. To let that go now, again, I'm going to edge it to Dricus. I don't know. That's the way I see it, you know.
Yeah. It'll be absolutely fascinating.
Sure.
Let's look forward to next month then. Sabaya, June
Yes.
the 10th, in Durban, North Coast. What a fantastic venue, a great place. History in the making, isn't it, Alastair? First women's
Yes.
flyweight title in the history of the sport on our continent. Amanda Lino against Trackisir. What do you make of that fight?
You know, it's an interesting fight because it's realistically, and if we're honest, it's not the two contenders fighting we thought it was going to be. But that's the game. That's the sport.
Yeah.
You know, it can change at any moment. And automatically, if you could phone Super Bets or Bet Exchange now, they'd tell you straight up that Amanda Lino is going to go in as a favourite, which is quite funny. And I think Jackie is playing that underdog quite well. You know, she's quiet, she's reserved, she's doing her work, she's training hard, working hard. And I think she's being overlooked, which makes things very interesting. You know, for anybody to overlook anybody in MMA is very dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, that they have fought before.
It was over very, very quickly compared to the 3 rounds she went with Shana to get the number 1 contender status.
100%. And I think both fighters have come a long way. Amanda's got that kind of power, that scary kind of power. But I think Jackie showed so much in her last fight against Shana Power. She's really come a long way, and she's really developed into a serious MMA, well-rounded MMA fighter. She had immense amounts of power and go forward, and she just looked really, really good. And I think mentally she's very strong. I think mentally she's kind of like, well, I've got nothing to lose, so say what you want and do what you want, but I'm going to be there in your face, you know. Which, at the end of the day, you're going to have the first ever women's title fight with 2 ladies that are really going to be in each other's faces.
And she seems quite happy with that. It's going to be another fantastic year for women's mixed martial arts in South Africa, because I know we've got Nicole Desenyi against Irene Cabello Rivera. Great fight.
Yeah, that's a massive fight. I believe it's in a bit of turmoil at the moment. They're not 100% sure if it's coming. It was supposed to be for UFC 60.
Yeah, that's correct. I don't know if it's been signed or not. I don't know if you know anything else.
No, well, I think people were misunderstood. I think it was going around yesterday. Desenyi was still calling her out, you know, hoping for a response. I know that she posted a picture of her with an EFC fight contract.
Yeah, it looked like an EFC release. Perhaps we'll get Graham to...
Graham can give us an update on what's happening there. And the big thing about Desenyi is also we're going to see a whole new fight. I mean, she's at Jackson Wink. She's been training with like Michelle Waterson, Holly Holm, with absolute killers all day, every day, you know.
Yep.
So that changes things, and all of a sudden you've got a Jackson Wink MMA prospect coming to South Africa to fight, which is exciting as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting fight if that happens.
Yeah.
The co-main event next month is an absolute fight of the year possibility. You know, Leon Maynard against Martin van Staden.
Absolutely, it's going to be a massive scrap. It's going to be technical. It's going to be everything you expect from 2 guys of sorts. And I think Durban, they've been asking for a card, man, and they got one hell of a card. They got one hell of a show coming their way, and I hope they're ready for it, you know.
No, it's going to be fantastic. Al, thanks for coming. I really appreciate it. Just want a quick question. The BigAlPodcast, great show. You're doing everything right. The design, the production, the platform is wonderful. Where are you going with it?
Thank you very much.
What's the future?
Well, to go forward, we have to look back. The whole thing of the podcast was to kind of portray stories. And to give background into interesting people. And to me, obviously being a passionate MMA fan, the MMA people are the most exciting, you know. And it's also to get across broader stories of who these people are and what they go through and what they're dealing with. And to be honest, moving forward, it's not going to be entirely MMA. We want to deal with interesting people that have got inspiring stories and get behind the mindset of people and what they're doing. You know, obviously MMA will always be our main focus, because I think MMA athletes are just extremely unique individuals to do what they're doing and the sacrifices they have to make every single day. Yeah, so, you know, we're really concentrating on getting across great stories, South African stories, and focus on the MMA sport industry as well as a whole. We've had guys from SAIDS on there to kind of give a bit of clarity on drug testing and how it works specifically for MMA. You know, we're in talks with guys like John Patricio to talk a little bit about head trauma and stuff like that in sport, and again specifically in MMA. Sports psychologists, sports coaches, strength and conditioning coaches, nutritionists. We've dealt with Rory Diesel. We've got him on to explain the water cut and weight cutting to people. So that's our goal, is to kind of, you know, encapsulate the entire MMA industry and everything around it, but as well as tell a couple of interesting stories along the way.
Cool. Well, I'm such a fan, as long as you don't ever do any golf. Alastair Bishop, thanks for coming on our show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me, Simon.